What's up, music fans of the internet? I'm Derek.
And I'm Kevin.
And together we're last week's album. We're bringing you the only reviews with two different views. And this week we're talking about Boronia by Hockey Dad. And we're asking the big question, does Hockey Dad keep surf rock from being boring on Boronia? Cheers, Kevin and everyone at home.
Cheers, Derek and everyone at home.
Hockey Dad is a duo of childhood friends from Australia. They are Zach Stevenson on guitars and Billy Fleming on drums. Boronia is their full-length debut, and it is named after a street that they lived on when they were childhood friends. We don't really know how to pronounce it.
Is it Boronia? Boronia?
I'm thinking I'm going with Boronia for the time being, but you know, we could be wrong. Let's talk about what it sounds like. Kevin, what'd you think?
Derek, I think this album sounds like Band of Horses and Young Buffalo go ice skating on a sea of glass.
Wow, I like the mental image of a sea of glass. I think Hockey Dad sounds like Wavves and Rooney burn the midnight oil. So let's talk about some highlights. Kevin, what'd you think?
Sure. My first highlight is just the overall sort of joyful, breezy vibe of this album. It feels and sounds very positive from start to finish without ever being cheesy, which is not the easiest thing to do. And even the sort of bummer songs don't get too bogged down in emotion. I Can't Have Them and A Night Out With and others, even when they're singing about maybe sad or downer topics, it still sounds really positive at the same time. So I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, the catchy surf rock sound was fantastic. The bright guitars and solid drumming, I thought, really helped create and carry that sound. And one thing that kind of stood out to me just from an instrumental standpoint was there weren't a lot of guitar solos. So it really seemed to put the focus on the songs themselves.
Also, the production, I thought, was really sharp, especially for a debut album. These guys have a very clear vision of the sound that they want to make, from the interplay between guitar and drums and voice, even to the sort of well-placed flourishes here and there. We get a little piano, hand claps, some other instruments. It's just all put together really, really well, especially impressive since it's their first album.
Got to even extend that to some of the backing vocal oohs and stuff like that were kind of present throughout. Lots of hand claps. That really kind of stood out to me as well. So you have any tracks that stood out to you?
Yeah, a few. I really liked So Tired. I liked the chugging guitars and pounding drums and drawn-out vocals. I also enjoyed Raygun, which was sort of a darker and heavier track, probably the heaviest one, at least in my opinion. Some grungy guitars, blistering drums, staccato chorus, and even some Raygun synth sound effects, which were nice. And then lastly, Grange. It was nice to hear these guys indulge themselves in a purely instrumental jam. A lot of bands don't have the balls to do that. So I was impressed with that. Really shimmering guitars, joyful hand claps here, some racing drums, even some tambourine and some bass and effects. So a really nice finish to the album overall.
I had some others. Can't Have Them. I really like the bright waves of electric guitars and the whirlwind of drums. Jump the Gun just had this playful electric guitar hook that kind of set the stage for the rest of the song. And Dylan's Place, another of the darker ones, but this one had shimmering electric guitar, some plodding bass, and driving drums. So let's talk about some lowlights. Why don't you start us off, Kevin?
Sure. I just have a couple. The main one is the lyrics. I thought they were pretty straightforward. I wish they were a bit more imaginative or unique. I thought Raygun got into some interesting territory, but for the most part, didn't feel too descriptive, I guess, overall. And then my second one is a smaller gripe, and it wasn't such a big deal to me. But I think given their limited instrumentation, the tracks can kind of blur together a bit. But I think they try their best, actually, to make them sound pretty different. But I'm not sure the nuances will come across to the sort of casual listener. You have to listen a little bit deeper and harder for those. So, yeah, those are my two. What about you?
I just had one. It wasn't too big of a gripe for me, but the vocal production, I thought it made the lyrics kind of very difficult to understand.
It was probably their Australian accents.
Oh, that's what it must have been. Absolutely. So let's talk about the overall rating and answering the big question. Does Hockey Dad keep surf rock from being boring on Boronia? Kevin, why don't you start us off?
Sure. I will start with the big question. Do they keep surf rock from being boring? I think absolutely. I think this is a very accessible album. Even if you're not super into surf rock, I think almost anyone will enjoy this sort of breezy approach that Hockey Dad takes. I think it's a great album for a summer party or a day at the beach. I think it's a really impressive debut album. Again, coming from these guys as their first, it's a really strong foot forward. So I enjoyed this one, and I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5.
Nice. I think we're going to agree and disagree to some extent. To answer the big question, yes, I think they keep surf rock from being boring. I think the high energy that they maintain throughout really makes it engaging and makes it really fun listening. Good things here. Hockey Dad, he's pushing you in the right direction only because he knows what's right for you. Bad, sometimes he yells a little too loudly from the stands. But fortunately for us, the surf rock on Boronia by Hockey Dad here is very nice, really engaging listening, very impressive debut. So I'm giving this one a 4 out of 5. And with Kevin's, that's a combined 7 out of 10. So go check out Hockey Dad's Boronia. And don't forget to tell us what you think. Don't forget to subscribe here on the YouTube or on the podcast. And as always, I'm Derek.
And I'm Kevin.
Cheers, guys.